Hey, what is up you guys, it's Dustin and I am back with another video, and in this video I want to talk about and react to this series Devil Within the Family that was released over on Hulu about Ruby Franke, her husband Kevin, and Jodi Hilderbrandt. Over the years before they got arrested, I did make a few videos about this situation because I never felt right about it, and I even said at the time that I thought that Ruby may be the mommy dearest of YouTube and mommy vloggers. What they did was they bought their 4 older children Christmas gifts, and then they basically had their 2 youngest children watch them open them on Christmas Day, and they didn't get them anything, and they said that this is because they wanted to teach them a lesson. They wanted to give them the gift of truth, that they basically wanted to teach them a lifelong lesson.
This year they are not going to be visited by Santa. We let them know that the Christmas morning their 4 older siblings will be getting Christmas presents to open, and that they will have the gift of love from their dad and I, because we want them to really have a visceral experience that hits them. Keeping them home from school and wiping the floorboards would really bring pain. And it wasn't painful for them. They're like, oh yeah, we get to stay home from school and clean floorboards. This is kind of fun. It's like, and they haven't affected them. It's because they're so numb. And so the more numb your child is, the greater experience, the bigger the outcome. They need to wake them up.
Okay, it's so weird to me that you would want your child to have a visceral reaction to something that that to me is mind-blowing, that someone would want their children to go through a traumatic experience, number one. And then second of all, she was talking about the baseboard cleaning and things like that, talking about she wanted her kids to feel pain. Who does that as a parent? I'm not even a parent, but I know that you should not do that type of shit to your kids. That is traumatizing. And this is how you're gonna end up on either a show called Snapped, or you're gonna end up in a nursing home. Nothing about this entire situation with any of these people involved ever sat right with me, and after watching this, I have even more thoughts, because this behind the scenes footage, you guys, was absolutely insane. But before we jump into all of that, here's a word from today's sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. Imagine this. Suddenly you're in a life-altering car crash and your world is turned upside down. You're dealing with medical bills, lost wages, and pain, while insurance companies lowball you and offer you pennies for your suffering. You try to fight back, but you're up against corporate legal teams with deep pockets. And that's where today's sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, comes in. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, with over 1,000 attorneys in all 50 states. Here are some things to consider. Morgan & Morgan recovered $12 million in Florida, stated to be 34 times what the insurance offered, and in Philadelphia secured $26 million, which is said to be 40 times the insurance best offer. And for those seriously hurt, they suggest injuries could be worth millions. Morgan & Morgan has modernized the injury law process. You can submit a claim, communicate with the legal team, all from your smartphone. And the fee is absolutely free unless you win. They've recovered over $20 billion for clients. All law firms are not the same. They're the biggest because they win a lot. The process to sign up is very simple. You sign up and Morgan & Morgan takes it from there. Their attorneys equipped with experience and technology will fight for your rights if you become their client, so you can focus on recovery. And they offer support with their team, all accessible right at your fingertips. For those of you that have been hurt, you can visit forthepeople.com/Dustin for more information. Because when you're hurt, remember, Morgan & Morgan is for the people. Now, as I'm sure you know, there is a lot that got us to this point where Ruby and Jodi are now in prison and Kevin now has custody of the kids. So for those of you that don't know the backstory and you haven't seen this, I'm going to give you a quick TLDR of what got us to this point and what got us here before I give you my reaction to the first episode in the series. Because you guys, if you didn't know what is in this series and you don't know, you are going to lose your mind. Because I heard things and I saw videos and I watched videos, but I never had any idea this level of depravity was going on. I never had no idea that these kids were suffering the way that they were. Honestly, this is something that nightmares are made of, and these kids went through this at the hands of their own mother. Back in 2015, Ruby Franke, a Mormon mom from Utah, started a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers with her husband Kevin and their 6 kids, Sherry, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve. The idea was simple: vlog their family life, homeschooling, and parenting tips, all with a wholesome, faith-driven vibe. Ruby wanted to be the picture-perfect mom, and at its peak, the channel hit 2.5 million subscribers, raking in serious cash like up to $100,000 a month. They were big in the momfluencer world, showing off their strict but supposedly loving parenting style rooted in Latter-day Saints values. Things started looking off around 2020 when viewers noticed Ruby's punishments were harsh, like making her son Chad sleep on a beanbag for 7 months after a prank, or refusing to bring her 6-year-old Eve lunch at school because she forgot it.
The outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry, and hopefully Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
People online got word, and a petition with over 18,000 signatures called for Child Protective Services to investigate. CPS checked in but found no hard evidence. Then Ruby brushed it off, saying it was just their way of teaching self-governance. Kevin, an engineering professor, mostly stayed in the background, filming or nodding along. The channel started fading in 2021 and Ruby shifted gears. She teamed up with Jodi Hilderbrandt, a Utah therapist who ran a life coaching program called Connections. Jodi was all about truth and personal growth, but her methods were intense. Some ex-clients later said she'd isolate people from their families. Ruby and Jodi got close, launching parenting content together under Moms of Truth. By 2022, Ruby and Kevin separated and she moved with her 4 youngest kids into Jodi's house in Ivins, Utah, 300 miles away. That's when things got dark. Fast forward to August 2023, Ruby's 12-year-old son escaped Jodi's house, ran to a neighbor and asked for food and water. He was malnourished with duct tape on his wrists and ankles and open wounds from ropes. Cops found Ruby's 9-year-old daughter hiding in a closet in the same awful shape. Turns out, Ruby and Jodi had been abusing the kids for months, starving them, forcing them to do grueling labor in the heat with no shoes, binding them, even cutting off oxygen, all because they believed the kids were evil or possessed. This was tied to some extreme religious ideas. Ruby kept journals detailing it, like poking her son with a cactus to punish him. Both were arrested, charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse, and in December 2023, they pleaded guilty to 4 counts each. In February 2024, they got sentenced to 4 years to 30 years in prison. The exact time depends on parole. Kevin filed for divorce, claiming he didn't know the full extent, while the older kids, like Sherry and Chad, spoke out about the nightmare behind the vlogs. YouTube banned Ruby and Jodi, wiping their channels completely. Now that you guys are all caught up, I guess we can talk about this documentary. Nick and I watched the whole thing. We watched the first 3 episodes, and then yesterday, as soon as we got up, we finished it off, and I was just blown away by how this whole thing played out. I think it was very well done. I think that it was very well put together. You guys, the amount of behind the scenes footage was absolutely crazy. They had to sit there and probably watch thousands of hours of footage, and they got some of the most unhinged shots of Ruby Franke sitting there like just looking crazy. Her responses to the kids and how she acted toward them, and even her husband Kevin in that footage that she knew would never see the light of day, was terrible. I also think that they did a very good job portraying both sides of the story. What Ruby Franke wanted out there, how she was supposed to be the mother of the century, and what she actually turned out to be, this horrible monster. The way they breadcrumbed everything together in just this first episode, I got so much information that I didn't even know before. Now, the title of this episode was actually Abundance, and they talked about how Ruby Franke wanted to be so rich, and they even discussed how their first check from YouTube was $85 and how that encouraged them to do more. Now, as a YouTuber, I've been doing this for almost a decade now. I don't know how they got a check for $85 because AdSense only pays out at $100, so that math was not mathing for me. But aside from that, they gave a lot of background detailed information about how much money was made on YouTube with this 8 Passengers channel, and they told where all this money was going and how it eventually dried up because everybody got pissed off at Ruby Franke. I also do want to say, out of everybody in this situation, I do, and this is just my personal opinion because I don't want to get sued, I will never understand how he was okay with being away from his children at all ever. It never made any sense to me how he didn't know any of this was going on. Like, really, dude? Now, as far as the kids, Sherry and Chad, I think they did a very good job of telling their story and how they dealt with all this stuff coming from both of their parents. But there was one thing that Sherry said that kind of sent chills down my spine, and that was that her mother was verging into psychotic and evil territory. But overall, if you're invested in this story, if you've never heard of it before and you're intrigued, I definitely suggest watching Devil Within the Family, Ruby Franke's story, because I'm sure, just like me, there is something in that you've missed that's gonna blow you away. But you guys, I want to know your thoughts and opinions on this. Have you followed this story? Do you know anything about Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrand? Honestly, in my personal opinion, I believe that they should have got life for what they did. These kids and what they showed with these bandages with cayenne pepper on it put a pit in my stomach. But with that said, you guys, please let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it, and if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. And also let me know if you'd like the other 3 recap videos for this series, because again, I did watch this whole thing, and I feel like with the other 3 episodes, we can get a lot deeper into this. So let me know if you'd like those videos from me. And also, if you made it this far in the video, leave me the cop emoji down below. You already know why. Because Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrand are right where they need to be. It just needs to be longer. But with that said, I hope you guys all have an amazing day, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.